And there we have it. The Springboks dominate in a dominant, powerful performance, 26 points to 3. And you'd have to say that's a scoreline that really flatters the Japanese, because this Springboks team was well on top. They were looking very, very powerful, and they were unlucky not to score more points. Kia ora everyone, my name is Zach. I love rugby. Welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. Okay, we're going to review, we're going to recap, and we're going to revise all the key points on this game. And where I want to start is in the tactics. Now, it was clear coming into this that the tactics adopted by Japan would very much be that speed, that width, that continuity, and that low error game that they have proven to be successful with against both Ireland and Scotland. For the Boks, their intentions were very, very clear, and it was to come into this match with a power game and dominate both set piece, the collision, and all areas in terms of attack and defense. It was really billed as a battle between the speed and width and error count, I guess low error count of Japan versus the strength and power of the Springboks. And on this occasion, strength and power won out in a big, big way. And in the quarterfinals, a huge result for South Africa. Now, in terms of those tactics, so what we saw from Japan, they were very much looking for those crossfield kicks. Early in the match, they were in their own 22 and quite happy to kick it across to the touchline. And I thought Mapimpi in particular was very, very good in defense against that tactic. I think they knew exactly that that was going to come. The only innovation that I saw from a tactics perspective from Japan is that they moved Michael Leach up to the wing, and he was the primary recipient of those crossfield kicks. The thinking there being that you get the bigger, more mobile man up in the air to contest the ball, and if he can get it across to the speedsters, either Fukuoka or Matsushima, then they've got a real chance of breaking the Springboks team open. And initially, it just didn't seem to gel. Either the kick was a little bit too far, a little bit too close, just not quite on the money, or perhaps Michael Leach just got the timing wrong there a couple of times. On the other side, as I mentioned, for the Springboks, their game was really built on trying to win the collision and dominating the set piece. And while they started to get ascendancy midway through that first half, it wasn't until towards the end of the first half that we really saw them start to dominate. And actually, the first half was marred by a number of errors when they were in open space, and this score could have been a lot more. Andre Pollard missed a kick. Also, Tamura, just as I mentioned, just seemed to be a bit off in his tactical kicking. And he was also the target from an attacking perspective for the Springboks. They ran straight in for that Mapimpi try. He basically just ran over the top of Tamura when he was isolated. So I think that's a game that Tamura would like to have back. Now, I did hear reports that he had broken a rib somewhere in that first half, so he did well to stay on the field. But in big games like this, if you are a medical liability, you've really got to go off. The other big moment in that first half, a yellow card to the Beast in what you would have to say was the right decision. I think if we apply the common sense lens, then that is the correct decision. The only thing is that this is one of those where World Rugby has been quite inconsistent in their interpretation. I would like to see them apply this interpretation a lot more, because it ensures that we don't ruin some of these key matches like a quarterfinal in a Rugby World Cup. But what we have seen in many other matches is a level of inconsistency that means this would have been a red card. So I hope this is a positive sign in terms of World Rugby and the approach that they are looking to take as far as the referees are concerned. It was clearly no malice involved in that tackle. It was just lazy. And for his laziness, he got 10 minutes on the sideline, and I'm okay with that. That is fine. Okay, so we go into the halftime, 5 points to 3, and I think that is a score that very much flattered Japan. It just seemed like one of these two teams was about to break. I mean, in the first half, Japan did have a number of attacking raids where they just couldn't finish the pass or were tackled by the last man, versus South Africa, who, similar kind of thing, made a number of very, very good breaks and just couldn't finish the last pass. Sometimes the ball would just fall out. I know Willie LaRue had a couple of errors that he'd like to take back, but it just seemed like one of these teams was about to break out in the second half, and that's exactly what happened. So South Africa came out and just absolutely dominated, and they dominated both the collision and the set piece. They were winning every single line out at one stage. It was a very, very dominant performance in the lineouts as well as the scrums. I mean, during the yellow card, Japan did have that dominant scrum, but outside of that, it was very much all traffic with the Springboks. And towards the end of the game, you saw Japan trying to avoid the scrum, probably conscious of the fact that they were not winning or getting any advantage there in terms of the scrums. So we go into the second half. The Springboks put it on them with that dominant power display, and they ran out, scoring an additional 21 points in that second half with a number of really, really good tries. So great performance from them, and that sets them up for the rest of the World Cup going into the semi-finals. So a couple of the key men in this match. Now, Faf de Klerk, early on, he was doing this aimless kicking approach that he did against the All Blacks, and he's done in a number of the games as well, again. And it just seemed to me like you're turning over possession. And for a team that likes to counter-attack, like both Japan and the All Blacks, it's a clear mistake. It's a tactical error. When Faf started to run the ball a lot more in the second half, he proved how dominant that running game can be. And when you've got a forward pack that is going forward, it allows many, many opportunities for the halfback to run out of from behind the ruck and get some meters. And I think that was a really telling approach that started to break the Japanese. I'd like to see Faf do a lot more of that. Now, he got man of the match. Obviously, he scored a try and was very dynamic around the field. I personally thought Mapimpi was a little bit better on the day, and not because of the tries that he scored, but the tactic that Japan came in was very, very clear. They were going to target the width of the field, which means they are attacking on the wings. That means both cross kicks as well as ball in hand. There were a number of times where kicks went in behind Mapimpi and he was able to recover and defend. There were times when cross kicks came over and he was having to defend against the bigger man and Michael Leach, and he was able to defend. As well as he managed to get a couple of tries, which were very, very powerful tries. One where he ran just directly over Tamura in a display of power. And he just looked good across the field. So to me, he was my man of the match. On Faf in particular, though, it showed what can happen when he abandons these aimless kicks and starts actually attacking the ball. Having a variety in your attack where you are running, passing, or kicking is what puts defenses on the back foot. And he showed that great success when they started doing that in the second half. The other standout performer that we have to talk about is Matsushima. I thought he was very, very strong across all areas there. He was certainly the best of the Japanese players. And he had a great game. He's had a great tournament, so he'll probably go down as one of the best wingers of the tournament. I will eventually do a Hakatan Tournament 15, and within that, I think you're going to see Matsushima. He's probably one of my favorite players, but he proved it against some really, really quality opposition that he can stand up on the big stage, both physically and in terms of his speed. So well done, great tournament, good work to him. Closing out now in terms of next steps. So a couple of really important things came out to me in terms of tactics and improvements, let's say, that South Africa have made. So they were certainly winning the collision in this match. That was expected, but they were able to create set piece and attacking dominance as a result of that collision. And that's really going to be important as they move forward into the next couple of matches. Winning collision for this South African team is key to victory. Very good in the set piece. We know that already. Both from a line-out perspective as well as a scrum perspective. Very, very dominant again here. Dominant display of power in both areas, so well done there. The other point in terms of tactics, and I mentioned this, when Faf de Klerk runs, there's a lot more variety in attack and they are a lot more stable. The only thing I would call out as a concern is Andre Pollard now has missed a few kicks, both against the All Blacks and against Japan now as well. You know, if you look at halftime, going down 5 points to 3 where they could be 10 points to 10 points to 3, that's a much better advantage and a better outcome for the work that they did in the first half. I mean, going into a second half 5 points to 3 after having what I thought was a level of dominance in that first half, it's a mistake. And it's a mistake that was made against the All Blacks. I thought the South Africans were well on top in that first 20 minutes, in particular that period from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. There was a lot of South African dominance there, and they weren't able to convert that to points. Part of it was missed kicks from Andre Pollard. Other parts were missed opportunities. So that's something they really need to shore up. Get the kicking right, because in the big games, every point is going to matter. Now, where do they stand in terms of this tournament? Now, it was an underwhelming Welsh performance. We all agree to that. South Africa would be very, very confident going into that game. I believe that they will win that. Now, if they are to come into a final, and let's say that it's a rematch of the All Blacks versus South Africa game, which we would all love to see. I think that is starting to feel like the most fitting final here. But let's see, there's still a lot of rugby to be played. We've still got 2 semi-finals we need to get through. But if that is the match, I think we are seeing a slightly improved South Africa. We're certainly seeing an improved New Zealand. But if they can just shore up a couple of those things, as I mentioned, if we can see Faf attack with his running game a little bit more, a little less predictable and aimless on the kicks. Don't be so quick to kick to the point where you're just giving away possession, because that's something that the All Blacks and the Japanese in this game, that's exactly what they want. It plays into their hands. Obviously continue to win the collision, and if they can continue to dominate the collision against the All Blacks and keep the scoreboard ticking over, they can beat them for sure. I mean, at this stage, I would say the All Blacks are certainly favourites to win this tournament, but they can be beaten by both England, South Africa. Not too sure about Wales. I'll get to that discussion in a later video. But it's going to come down to ensuring scoreboard pressure is maintained, winning the collision, actually getting some reward back for your hard work. There's too often that teams, will apply hard work and just not be rewarded for that outcome, and that can keep teams close. And then we've seen, like the All Blacks can do in 5 minutes, they can put 17 points on you, and essentially by that point the match was essentially over. At that point, I think there was enough confidence there in that All Blacks outfit to kick on and then obviously win that game. So those are going to be focus areas. Rassi, if you're watching this, please, please, please focus on those areas. Give me a call if you want to talk about tactics on how to beat the All Blacks. I'm going to drop a video, actually, a detailed video on the strengths and weaknesses of the All Blacks, and in particular how teams can beat them. I think there's a lot of talk that the All Blacks are going to run away with this one now. I don't believe that to be true. I know, having assessed them in terms of their style of play and their tactics, there are some key areas of vulnerability that teams should be focusing on if they want to beat this All Blacks. I'm going to lay it all out in a future video, and that's all coming. So guys, quarterfinals done. We're now moving into semi-final time. It's business end of the World Cup. So if you like this comment, please comment down below and let me know what your thoughts on this game. Please subscribe if you want more rugby content. I'm going to be dropping more videos like this. As I say, we're going to get, it's business end now, so it's also business time for Hakatan Rugby, which means we need to get into detailed analysis. We need to come up with keys to victory, and we need to spur these teams on to success. So thanks again for joining, guys. We'll talk again soon. See you soon.